Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
Best result for us at the end of this weekend is to know that someone has changed the way they spend their time off by attending our weekend. That's a phenomenal result for us in the first year. If we get feedback after the weekend, I gained the confidence, I'm now going out to walk with my family, I'm more engaged with my kids. You know, we work loads of weekends. So the weekends we get off, it's really important that we spend them wisely and well with our families. And if you can get confidence to access the outdoors, it's got a positive impact on the whole family. If you're a blue light responder experiencing these challenging working days and lives, then this is available and open for everybody. But what we really need to be mindful of is that if the responder isn't fit physically and psychologically, then there is no service to deliver.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Hey folks, before we get into today's episode, just wanted to introduce you once again to our mobile application, Drillbook. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you're probably the sort of person that likes to develop themselves. Now, Drillbook is built to be the home of training ideas for drill grounds all across the world. It's a library of content built by firefighters for firefighters. It's for training ideas, it's for incident debriefs, radio messages. We've got if code templates in there, knots and lines, quick reference guides, interview questions, answers, and guidance. So go in there, check it out. You want to develop yourself. If you're looking to develop a firefighter on your station, head into the App Store or click the notes in the podcast links below. Yes, brother. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine, Pete. How are you?
I'm wicked, my man. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too.
How was the night shift?
It was all right.
Steady.
The second machine was out a few times, but the running machine never moved, which is pretty decent.
Which truck were you on last night?
I was on the runner machine.
Nice. Good man.
So
what's the layout for the station stop there, like average sizes? Because how long ago was it now when all 4 services switched into one? So we're stretching a while back now, aren't we?
2016.
2006. Oh, so it wasn't that far ago. You know what I mean? That's still pretty recent. Are they gotten over all the bumps and the bits and the bobs and old behaviors and values and I want to keep my badge and we don't do that policy and I still do it the old way?
Well, the public are made to believe that we have, but the reality is something different. There's still the old call signs for the appliances lying in the appliance bay when you're signing for your jive flooring and stuff. So there's still call signs of 301 instead of the new like Kilo 07. So the old hands.
And when you're on the main scheme radio, you're still using all the old call signs. And everyone's like, yeah. And then when some senior officers like, we don't recognize that call sign. What's that? And you're like, yeah, but we do recognize it. So they're at a job. So I'm not going to bother correcting them because it doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. But it's coming along good now. Actually, we're doing okay. 4th largest apparently in the world.
Wow.
Has its teething problems. I would say the biggest challenge would be the distribution of equal information across the whole of Scotland.
That's the thing, mate. Yeah. And especially I want to hear like your training department, because I think there will have been many benefits there because I imagine they might have lost a few jobs, as in they might have reduced the numbers, but you've got everybody together. So the benefit of you sharing more information, but however, because it's a larger body of firefighters and staff and everything like that, to get that disseminated is actually harder. Like I see some of the new stuff that comes out in London and especially Australia, like some of the people we've had on from Australia, they can be doing a rollout that might take them 2 years to get across all of their stations. It takes 3 hours to travel from one station to another sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem as well. It's like getting that information across at the same time before it starts to change. And also Scotland being a large area, and lots of it semi-rural and rural, that the one shoe doesn't fit all within the organisation. So the city centre stations have a different challenging turnout
Yeah,
than
man.
the rural stations, but we're all still having to fit the same training programme because we're one national. So it has its issues.
That's it. And people think like you're being maliciously disruptive, or you're not, and you're like, no, that just doesn't fit our core profile, or we've got different kit, or I know what you're trying to ask us to do, but that just doesn't fit here at the station. Not because we don't want to do it, you're just not listening. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying, and that can be a challenge. You've got some of
exactly.
your stations are offshore as well, aren't they? Or you
Uh,
have to boat to them.
yes. So there's stations in Isle of Skye, Lewis, Harris, some of these other places, and they're retained pumps. And if you don't get a full crew, then you get a level 2 job on a factory somewhere. You're now ferrying pumps and personnel across stretches of water
Oh,
to
no
get to a
way. Do you
fire.
really? They have to
Yeah,
genuinely send them over on the ferries and stuff. Because I
yeah.
was at a fire behavior course recently with a guy from Guernsey.
All right.
They've got one station. It is a beautiful station. Now, it's
I
an old
imagine.
listed building. I think it's got like 9 or 10 bays or something ridiculous
All
like
right.
that. But if they have a big job, there's no one else coming. They basically do recall to duty. So anyone that's
Wow.
off is never off and they
Yeah,
don't get an additional retainer fee for that. They just get called in if it's a big job, and they'll just bring the other
really.
trucks out.
Wow.
But I think that again, this is what I love so much about the podcast, because you find out stuff all over the world. Like I was down at the Firefighters charity a little while back with one of your training instructors actually, and he was
Okay.
telling me that they have to go around and they're here and there, and it's massive travel distances for them,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
have to get out there. So they have to take the ferries out to the on-call stations, and
Yeah.
they're very much left to their own devices in a lovely way, because it might
Yes.
be a day and a half's travel just to deliver a 3-hour session.
Yes, and there was a time as well with the big articulated lorry, which was the fire behaviour lorry, that would be drove around all the rural areas so that they could get carbonaceous training for the retained firefighters and volunteers. And there's volunteer. I don't know in England, but there's firefighters that are volunteers, so they don't even get paid. They're so rural
Yeah,
that they are a volunteer firefighter, wear the badge, wear the clothes, do the same training, but
yeah.
don't take a wage.
No,
And
it's
it's like,
mad, isn't it? There's still a lot of that in Australia. There's very few places like that. And I'm going to go out on a stretch, and some listener will correct me. I don't think there's any like that left in the UK. But no, people don't. And there's a lot in America as well, actually, that still do fully volunteer. But they almost like acknowledge their staff a lot more as well. Like they let them wear their kit everywhere. They put badges on their own cars and all that
yeah,
sort of stuff. And some people can go, oh, it's a bit wanky American. But I'm like, I think we should be more proud of what we do, and that kind of brings us nicely into kind of the whole point of our conversation today. So I always say to
yeah.
people when we're on the podcast, like, don't worry about identifying where you're from in your station or anything like that, because you might get in
Good.
trouble, but we won't say anything that gets anybody in trouble. But
Yeah.
just give us a whistle stop of kind of why we're kind of talking today, because we wanted to get this chat in early, because we're doing something really exciting at the end of the year, which you've been and your team has been doing a colossal amount of work for.
Yeah, that's right. So if you want to know where the idea came from, and
Yes.
the
Tell us the
idea,
origin. Tell us the round the table conversation where you're like, why are we not doing
yeah.
this?
So the origin came from myself and one other firefighter in the city of Edinburgh, who decided that what we would do was try and rebirth the legacy old Lothing and Borders walking and climbing club that existed many moons ago and then fell by the wayside. But me and this guy, Dougie Brotherson, were out
What a
walking.
great name.
I know it's a great name. Dougie Brotherson. So him and I were out walking and stuff, and then what we decided to do is like, let's try and get this walking and climbing club thing moving. So we used the internal media platforms within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and Yammer being the platform that we used. So every time we went for a walk, we would take some photos, post them on the Yammer page,
Yeah.
and then advertise it. And everyone in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, regardless of your role, has access to that platform.
Nice.
And then we were saying, you want to come and join us? We're going walking, nothing too strenuous. Dougie and I had been ex-forces, so we could handle a map and a compass relatively safely, had a good bearing
Because that
of...
is one of the dangerous things. Sorry to interrupt you there. Like, I've done a bunch of mountaineering stuff, and people go, oh, especially with social media now, everyone's like, hey, look at me up Ben Nevis, look at me on, Scarfell Pike or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's fucking dangerous. don't just go
Absolutely.
out there in your shorts
Yeah.
and half a 500 ml bottle of water and think you're going to be okay, because unless you've got somebody like yourself with you, and this is where I think there's a tremendous market and exactly what you're going to do. Sorry for interrupting, but it's a dangerous thing, isn't it?
It is a dangerous thing. And that was part of the ethos behind it as well. So Doug and I are saying, let's try and create a platform or an environment where we can introduce people to the outdoors who wouldn't normally get access because of the lack of skill and experience. And knowing the benefits of how good you feel after a day on the hills, it's like, why not try and open this up to everybody? So we took the old constitution that was lying dormant somewhere. We refreshed it. We made it way really, really inclusive, making sure that we incorporated everybody within the fire service. And this is where we've made the big difference with the Walking and Climbing Club, is we have specifically targeted non-operational and non-uniform members of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, because they often can be the people that are unrecognised. We function very well, but we need the rear echelon to support
We're
us.
only the tip of the sword. We're a very small part of the cogs, but we're the bit that everybody sees. But I feel like when people say that, and I absolutely agree with you, but I fall foul of it regularly on the podcast, because I always say, like, look, no one's maliciously excluding anybody on it, but to the public sometimes, and that's why we've had members of control and HR and all that on the podcast, but some people don't know what that means. When we say control staff, and we have a lot of members of the public that listen to the podcast, and they don't get it. So when we just say, oh, firefighters or fire and rescue, but then some people feel like you're excluding or not recognizing or not appreciating, but it is so important, because without them, we're just a bunch of idiots on loads of expensive equipment, wandering around, getting lost, not knowing the plans, where to get the water from, what to do when we get there. Well, we probably have a good idea of what to do when we get there, but we're a very small part of a massive machine, and they're incredible.
Yes, and I think that that's really important, that we recognise that, and the non-operational, non-uniform staff that are digging away in the background have their challenges as well within the workplace, different challenges from what we share, their stressors, and what makes them not fit for duty can be slightly different from us. So based on that, we thought, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to incorporate the whole of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. We're going to make this as inclusive as we possibly can, and let's get the Walking and Climbing Club up and running again. So the constitution was rewritten, reborn, and we just set up a WhatsApp group, as you do. It's called Up the Ben, the back for Ben Nevis. And we just started speaking verbally within the station, advertising on iHub, who wants to come and join us for a walk. And slowly but surely, there was people attending. I'd love to turn up for the weekend. So we've organised a couple of trips down into the Lake District for some Via Ferrata. We have walks in the local hills here in Edinburgh, the Pentland Hills, which are not too strenuous. So make sure that we incorporate everybody. From there, we now do days climbing, traditional climbing or sport climbing in quarries and recognised climbing areas within Scotland. And then we've moved right up at the top end of the scale, where over the last 2 years, we've booked into the Charles Ingalls Clark Hut, which is an alpine-style hut that sits remotely at the north face of Ben Nevis. It's like an hour and a half walk in there. You need to take everything you require for the days, and then we spend 2 or 3 days winter climbing on the north face of Ben Nevis. So
I've never actually been there, because I was so excited, because we went up Ben Nevis May, and I was driving there. A friend of mine, Charlie Thompson, who's going up Everest, I think next year, firefighter, trying to raise a bunch of money and all that sort of jazz. And we drove past like the offshoot where you then need to go that way and you have to pack it all up and he did reference it to me, but obviously we didn't go there because we're just going to Ben Nevis. But some of these places are just so incredibly beautiful, and it's hard to articulate. And we go to all these places with international search and rescue because they're great training grounds for arduous conditions and, just being resourceful, personal admin, the 4 pillars of survival and all that sort of stuff. And these places are just so incredibly beautiful. But I love what you said there about balancing the physical and the sort of non-physical aspects of the job as well, because control staff especially, but also so many members of the fire and rescue service, they don't get the same level of dissipation in terms of stress. Like, we're on the watch, on the stations, so you get to, have a laugh, shoot the shit with some friends and stuff like that, and to kind of relax that trauma and the challenging sides of the job. Whereas certainly for control staff, they're going from hit to hit to hit. Every phone call is high octane. They sometimes have 2 or 3 other people in the room that they can talk to something about, but I think they actually have it worse. Yes, some people will argue, oh, but they don't see the trauma on the front line. No, but they get the different ripples of trauma, and they actually kind of get it worse because they experience trauma from a distance. So they've got no framework for it. They've got no referencing, and they don't get the same level of closure because we will know, right, that person's gone in the ambulance now, they've gone off to the thing, or unfortunately that person passed away, but I can kind of piece together the reasons why they passed away. Whereas on the other end of the call, we don't close the loop for them, which I think is a failing globally, and certainly not a malicious one, but we're all just so goddamn busy. So I think that's so essential. But the point I want to make with that is, certainly with the ISAR stuff, we bring a lot of our backroom staff with us because exactly what we're going to be talking about in a minute at the end of the month, you get to engage in those evening sessions as well, where it's round the bonfire, around the barbecue, sit-in, shared experiences. That bit is also like an accidental and never fully articulated part of the experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right there with the control staff and how they're exposed to it, because actually the responsibility, you could be in front of a job as an instant commander, you're trying to make up, or the incoming calls initially from members of the public, and then control are trying to put this very complex process together, and it's very stressful to try to make sure they've got the adequate resources available, making sure that they've got the consequential movements of appliances to back up the stations that have now got no pumps in them. And you're right, they don't get to see that end result that we do, and it's a very difficult job that they do.
I always think of them like a parent when they've got a child on a trip somewhere, and they keep getting phone calls, and they're trying to help you out, and they're trying to give you everything you need, but they don't want to interrupt you because they know you're busy. But then if something's not there or something goes wrong, they feel like it's their fault. And they're like, well, I don't want to bother you because you're busy, but I need some more information. I'm not sure what it is you're asking for. I need some more detail. And emotional, high octane, high stakes,
Absolutely. And they're at the forefront because they're actually there before we are, as far as the connection to the organisation. They're there, they're first in attendance verbally.
Especially if they've got those fire survival guidance calls, you know what I mean? And the person's like, where are they? You said they're coming. Yeah, they're en route. We've got trucks on the way to you. Just stay near the window, keep checking your door, whatever. Or if there's another incident, just check the person's pulse, keep doing this. And they're like, and they eventually know when we get there, but then the call goes dead for them usually. And they don't know what happens next.
They pick up the next one and then they move on and then move on. So, I know they're under a lot of pressure, and we're so thankful for the efforts and the support that they give. Again,
and that's just one example of some of the many, many incredible, the different iterations, different versions, water, resources, assets, HR, occupational health, all of these incredible people. So you've tried to, navigate that sort of landscape to include all of these people.
Yes, and that can be quite difficult because the perceived image of the operational firefighter is one of fit, robust, ready to go, will stomp up a mountain really, really fast, and then that in itself.
They look like me and you, sort of knuckle draggers. Let's be honest, isn't it? If I asked my daughter to draw a picture, I mean, given she's known me all of her life, but she'd draw some big meathead knuckle dragging stereotype, which is so far from the truth sometimes, in a good way.
Absolutely. And I think that's what is really important, because it isn't the big muscle stereotypical image of the firefighter that makes us very unique in our ability to address challenging situations. And having the diversity within the organisation and shapes, sizes, different educations, different backgrounds makes us really, really powerful to serve the people that we are in the station waiting to respond to. And again, where the fire service comes into that is I was trying to get the image across to every member of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service that, please come and attend these walks, because we are not going to be putting backpacks on and running up mountains.
People are like, oh God, I've never abseiled in my life. I'm not sure. What are we going on a 20-mile tab with 20 kilos on my back? I'm not up for that shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we start off at Munro Heights, big mountains in Scotland, you're excluding people right away. And, all of a sudden, by default, you're not inclusive. So we need to make sure that we have a wide range of different abilities and levels and incorporate that so that everyone gets a feel. And, the people that come on the gentle walks in the Pentland Hills, just nearby the city of Edinburgh, they won't necessarily turn up on the winter climbing weekend that we organise on the north face of Ben Nevis. And that's fine. And there's a space for everyone, and that's what we're really trying to incorporate. So making sure that we get, as you said, HR, health and wellbeing, the pod, all the other directorates
even
across
the
the
chief
organisation.
might turn up, bless them. You never know.
Exactly, you never know. I wonder how relaxed everyone would be on that walk, but you know how it goes.
Yeah. Don't wear your epaulets for God's sake. But anyway, we've been tipping toe around it a little bit. I know we've just got straight down a rabbit hole, which is typical of me. But so just give us, when is it? What are we calling
Okay,
it? And then we'll go into a little bit of the detail of where specifically it is and the dates and times and what people can expect.
cool. Okay, and then to move on from that walking and climbing club, what we realised was when we posted those pictures, we were getting between 12 and 1,400 hits on
Oh,
the Yammer page within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. The most people that we'd ever had on an overnight bothy stay was 14. So there's a massive gap between who's interested
yeah,
and who's
yeah.
actually
How
attending.
do we close
So
that gap? What are we missing
yeah,
here? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And we done a bit of research, spoke to employees within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and one of the gaps that needed bridged was the physical ability required to attend, which we've covered there, people's perception, and the lack of skill and knowledge of that particular discipline. And by people not having the relevant information and safety informed, then that can prevent them from getting access to the outdoors, subsequently affect their mental health and well-being, and they just don't do it.
Yeah. And
So
because you're openly kind of associating yourself with Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, I'm sure, with the greatest respect, they will have been all over you and been like, what? Tell me about health and safety. Tell me about risk. Make sure it's all safe. I don't want any of my staff. We can't have 200 people going on a weekend and all booking sick because you've not done your bit properly.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, what we did was we got the Walking and Climbing Club affiliated as a recognised outdoor walking and climbing club with a governing body in Scotland called Scottish Mountaineering.
Was that a ball like? Did they have lots of special requirements and stuff?
They loads of special requirements, but actually very, very engaging, very supportive.
Good.
Understood that they were dealing with firefighters and managed their expectations. So we've got that regulation side. And now anyone that joins us for a walk becomes a member of this. They pay us an annual fee, and then they get insurance from Mountaineering Scotland,
Nice.
where we're covered for walks, and if anything happens from a liability point of view, we carry out risk assessments, obviously, and make sure that we gauge it within the capabilities and don't, and manage people's expectations. If people want to come up to Ben Nevis for 3 days winter climbing, it's like, well, really, you need to be starting in the summer, learning how to use a rope before we transfer to the winter. So we manage
100%.
that because,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people
Because
really
the
want to get
cognitive load of doing rope access and stuff is a lot anyway, if you're not familiar with it. And then if you've got to start factoring in, I'm cold, my feet are damp, it's slippy, I'm a bit tired, that's where those cognitive loops start to open up and you miss. And if you miss a crucial thing, this is what I always think when I teach rope access, it's like, if you get it wrong in BA, we can vent the building, we can bring you out. If you're about to do something silly in core skills, we can stop it. If you get it wrong on rope, gravity is going to tell you much quicker than I can.
Absolutely. Totally. And you're going to be hitting the deck at a fair rate of knots. And the thing with that is it's like, so learn the skill in the summer months when the weather's nice, learn to put the appropriate clothing on, how to manage yourself, the PPE, learn how to navigate, so that all of a sudden the only thing you're focusing on in the winter is the route in front of you and not anything else. And that's a slow trajectory, but we need to make sure that we manage that, and we have managed that through the Walking and Climbing Club by making it as diverse as possible with different ranges of ability being catered for. So that was where we started. The bridge became, there was a lot of interest, but not many people attending. And then there's realised there was a skill fade and people didn't really have an interest or an introduction to the outdoors, had never been before. So Dougie and I decided, you know what we're going to do? Let's make a weekend of it. And this started about a year and 14 months ago. The first idea we came up with was, let's hold it in the Lake District, because the idea had never been done before, and ideas start somewhere and then run somewhere different. So we started in the Lake District as an idea, and then all of a sudden the penny dropped. I'm like, hang on a minute, we've got Aviemore just up the road, beautiful Cairngorms. Why are we thinking the Lake District? That's because we go climbing there, we go trips there, we go climbing there. And sometimes you often forget what's really right in front of you because we're so So familiar with the environment, the Cairngorms, Ben Nevis, and other mountain ranges across Scotland. Because we visit them all the time, we forget how beautiful they are.
But only a small percentage of people visit them all the time. You guys and girls do, because it's just in your wheelhouse. You are those types of people, without sort of air quoting it. But so many people that you live and work with probably have never realised the beauty that's on their doorstep.
Yes, and what a shame, right? Where you're working within the
100%.
central belt of Scotland, and then you've got a 2-hour drive north. You've got access to some of the, in fact, no, even you can drive an hour north from the central belt and be in some outstanding natural beauty areas of Scotland. And we're trying to get people access to those areas because it makes you feel just that bit better after a day out walking. And it doesn't need to be hanging from a rope, 100 meters on the face of a cliff. It's like a nice leisurely walk somewhere. But getting that information and experience to people is what was the drive behind setting up the weekend.
So on that note, I mean, I'm looking at the social media page now. So I know we've gone down a rabbit holes, and this is the thing, like we've just said about living near something you already know about. I already know so much about what we're talking about, but for people that are unfamiliar, so you're a charity supporting the mental and physical well-being of emergency service personnel. We're offering people the opportunity to come and join for a weekend of adventure, relaxation, recovery. Give us an idea of, again, because I'm not ahead of yet, what's the actual date for it? And then
so the
go
date
through what we're actually
is,
going to be doing.
Yeah, so date is 25th to the 27th of August this year. And what we're going to be doing is providing one location area within the heart of Cairngorms, based out of Badaguish, which is an outdoor facility, outdoor sports facility. We will be providing access to clinics, outdoor clinics, where those who choose to attend can book on to a clinic and get expert input. An example of one is Mountaineers Scotland are on board with us, and they will be providing an introduction to scrambling. They'll be providing access to walking, just to go over the basics of walking. We've got a company, Able to Adventure. They specialise in adaptive canoes, paddle boards, and bikes for any emergency service
Seen that, mate. Some of the
personnel.
pictures you've got on your socials of the canoeing, the paddle boarding, some of the walking, the pods, the accommodation, some of it's beautiful. It's so gorgeous around there.
It's a fantastic place, and if we can get the emergency services personnel to attend the weekend, it's £20 for a ticket. I should say that first. There's a cost associated with it, but again, we're trying to keep this as reduced as possible. So £20 for a ticket, that gives you access from the Friday to the Sunday. We've got live music on the Saturday night, and that £20 also includes your barbecue on the Saturday evening. That's you're in the door.
Wicked. We shouldn't skip over that bit, because when you're absolutely hanging out your arse and you've had a good day or weekend of whatever your challenge is, whether it's just walking or whether you're one of the crazy ones that wants to paddleboard, hike, whatever it is, when everyone is just full of nature, it's all in your hair and it's all, you just had that wind and sun on your face all day, sitting down for some food and a drink, those bits are incredible. It's a great time of year to do it as well, mate.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic location to be doing it. There's tented accommodation on site, so that would be an additional cost. So you're £20 for your ticket. You then pay per night, depending on how many nights you work. If you want to stay the Friday night and the Saturday night, or just the Saturday night, there's camping facilities there. The clinics will be ran. They're at different costs, depending on what it is you're going to do. So that will be on our Eventbrite page. So we've got an Eventbrite page that emergency service.
I don't think you've got that link on your socials.
No, we don't, because it's a closed event for emergency service personnel.
We spoke this the other day. So it's a good point to raise, actually.
Yeah, so it's a great lead on to that point. So we've taken into consideration that this is for emergency service personnel across the UK, not just Scotland. And we want to make sure that we don't get any members of the public jumping on board and getting involved. So we've kept it as
not that we don't like the members of the public, but with all due respect and just in total transparency, we are at a heightened risk of certain things in the UK at the moment. And for people with nefarious motivations, they may see it as an opportunity to do nasty things to all of our first responders. So we're making sure, firstly, that we protect everybody that wants to come. And I know you've liaised with local law enforcement and things like that for this.
Yes, we have. And that's incorporated as part of a risk assessment. So incorporating and making sure that we're due diligent in the risk assessment is we have a closed Eventbrite page link that emergency service personnel can get access to. So on our social media, some of the posts will say direct message us, DM us, and then or send us an email. Then we make that established connection, and then we send you the Eventbrite link. And that way, we make sure that we have the right people attending the weekend.
Yeah. Like-minded people as well, that can share their thoughts, concerns, experiences, careers, adventure, and you can share it and dissipate it amongst like-minded people with similar experiences, which I think is so unique. And I'll be totally transparent as well. The podcast is going to be there. We're going to be there. If anybody wants to come and meet us, if they've been listeners for a long time, they want to come meet us, we're going to be there. We're not going for free. We're paid, we're donating, we're taking a train up there, and we're going to meet all the boys and girls and contribute and be part of something cool. And what I am going to say to you now, which I've not really mentioned prior to this call, and I've just written it down next to me, I'm going to try and get some stuff to auction off so that we can try and make some donations to the charity. So I'm going to speak to Hikes after this because it's very relevant to the cause. And we'll try and get a Gucci pair of boots to auction off for people. We want to do that. We want to contribute to that. And I know Hikes are basically in this entire market. We might speak to Gore-Tex as well and see if we can get some stuff off them just to donate so that we can try and give some. And we also, nobody takes any money from this. No one, you're not getting paid. I'm not getting paid. It's all about doing a good thing. So if we can get them to contribute, it will be a pair of really Gucci outdoor hiking boots, and we'll have it available for people to auction, and then we'll send them off, same as we do every month. So I'll make that contribution to you now, even if we have to pay for it out of the podcast. So I'll speak to them after this.
And I really appreciate that. And this is one of the challenges that we've faced in the setting up of this. This is a new and creative idea that we've set up. 999 Reorganise Set Off is the official long name for it, but the name is 999 Reset, an abbreviation. And we have financial challenges as any organisation. This is the charity has just been formed. The charity number is still pending, and we're at the early growth stages of something that's really unique. And by getting Firefighters Podcast involved in it and helping us to distribute the information and what's happening about this weekend is so valuable for us. Yeah. And we really appreciate the input and the support. And for the listeners that are anticipating or thinking, should I go or should I not go? My word is, get your ticket on the Eventbrite page. It's only 20 quid.
There is a limited number as well, isn't there? We will say to people, the venue has a capacity, so
200.
200, and that's not a lot. With the greatest respect, like I'm hosting the British Firefighter Challenge at the end of this month, and the cap for that is also something like 200. And they always have people going, "Oh God, I missed out," and this, that, and the other. And I say we're going to be there as well, and we might not be there every year, so we'll be recording a few stuff if people want to come and talk to us about their journeys and their adventures in the fire and rescue service. So we'll be there with some mics and some food and hopefully some stuff to give away as well.
Yeah, amazing. And, get the tickets and get involved with it. And when you arrive, there's an option within the Eventbrite page to book into additional clinics that are provided by experts. So Mountmuir in Scotland are delivering those clinics. There is open water swimming. We've got a yoga teacher on board as well, yoga on Saturday, Sunday morning.
Mate, yoga is wicked. I've been doing yoga for about 3 years now. I never used to do it when I was powerlifting or a strongman. And my mobility has been an absolute game changer over these past few years because I'm just a big knucklehead. Do you know what I mean? I've had torn pecs and tendons and ligaments and injuries, and I snapped my knee last year. And sustaining that mobility is that because you start narrowing your field of physical ability, and you're basically slowly putting yourself into a box of old age where you can't move in certain ranges and stuff like that. And because then when you do need to go in that range of movement in an emergency, and just if your nephew or your son or whatever is just about to fall off the table and you have to go there in that, and you can't do it, and that's where you hurt yourself. But yoga, mate, whether it's yoga, Pilates, whatever people want to do for themselves, that's huge. I'm going to be doing that. I'll do that on Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And the yoga, again, is something I started a few years ago, and like yourself, carrying multiple injuries over many years, and then all of a sudden, 3 years into a yoga program, and I'm thinking, why did I not do this years ago? I'm now in the reactive recovery stage instead of the preventative stage, but I think that's how most of us perform, right?
Yeah. But it's so beautiful. But I also feel for people that historically have had a bit of a woo-woo feel about it, or feel it's a bit weird, or someone's going to blow incense candles in their face or make them hum or something like that. I'm like, no, it's not any of that shit. It's really, really amazing. Even if your
Yeah,
first introduction is just do a
yeah,
5-minute YouTube with somebody and then
yeah,
go and do it yourself. It's a real game changer.
yeah, absolutely. So we've got Cairn Gorm yoga involved, and the yoga classes will be ran. We've got a CrossFit gym in Cairn Gorms. They're going to come and do
Ah,
kids gym classes,
that's going to
adult
get
gym
messy.
classes, just at a nice level, mixed up. A very fluid program. There will be a
Sarah,
program.
who's with the podcast, she's big into her CrossFit, and we were just 2 weeks at the college together recently, and we were like doing toe to toe, short
Okay,
15-minute hits every morning. I love a bit of CrossFit, as long as I don't get
yeah.
too technical. I ain't going no gymnastics. I can't get
No, no,
my
no, 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 no.
foot in my ear roll or anything like that. I'm not doing handstand
Yeah,
push-ups.
yeah, that's never happening. The thing is, though, there's within the Badagouche campsite, there's the barbecue area. It's beautiful. It's called the Sheelings. It's a beautiful standalone. It looks like a old sheep pen with a thatched roof. There's a small pond out the outside of it with these suspended light bulbs that come on just as the night light starts to get on. It's a beautiful scene. But there's a set of hoops like the gymnasts would use, like monkey
No,
bars, but in the hoops, and these things traverse across the pond. Now,
no way.
so stand by
Oh, how
for
far is
the.
it? What do you reckon?
I think there's maybe only about 10 hoops to cross,
That's still a
but
fair stretch. That's worth a challenge. That is.
and the thing is, it was primarily designed for children. So adults taking part have got two things to navigate. They've got to make sure that they hold on tight enough and get their legs up out the water so the
Yes.
core's engaged. So you're trying to, that's pretty technical.
Yeah, man.
And
Do you ever do
I'm
hanging
sure they'll go,
holds? I was doing this with my kids this morning. That's one of the signs of long-term like physical health is how long can you hang for? Now, males aged around 40, guess how long you should be able to hang for? From a bar, double overhand. How long do you think you could do?
I'm actually just trying to think how long I'd be when I went to the bar. I don't know, let's go a minute.
90 seconds. So you should be able to do a minute and a half. Now, it's bloody hard, you know. You're right now, you're gonna have a go at it, aren't you? It's really good, mate.
I'm at a gym
Honestly, it's harder than you think. Like my daughter can do 40 seconds and my wife did 43, but I don't know if she'd have pushed as hard had my daughter have not gone first. But I just say to people like hanging holds, it's so great. Again, that we're getting straight down a rabbit hole, sorry. I'll bring it back in a minute. But like active traction on the back and your shoulders. You know,
yeah,
we came from monkeys, so your shoulders, if you do hanging holds, it's so good for your scapula, for everything in your shoulder, because your arms usually just hang dead by your side, don't they? So hanging holds is great, and
yeah.
that'll be me and Sarah are gonna have a play with that one with her, 100%.
So, and so there'll be a lot of wet people walking about, I imagine, after it. But
Yeah,
what better to have a burger, have a couple of beers, and then let's start the challenge. So we're thinking like a 999 challenge. As I said, it's never been done before. It's the first year. So we're thinking, 9 minutes and 9 seconds past
you
nine
could
on the
turn it into a
Saturday
thing.
night.
You could just say like, I don't know, like right, 5 burpees, 10 press ups, and then straight into the rings or something like that. And then when you get off
Yeah,
either side, another 5 burpees, another 10. Some stuff that's achievable. You're not like, all right, 50 press ups, fucking hell.
yeah, yeah.
But
That's
anyway,
it.
whatever it is, that'd be really cool. And just have a little
Yeah,
time thing. And we could probably think of something to give away to a winner there, actually.
yeah, to the winner, exactly. And the thing is, if you're falling into the water, it's not the end of the world. It's
Yeah.
just how it goes. It's just part of the
Yeah.
weekend. So yeah, there's room for loads of creativity within the event. There will be a scheduled list coming out in the next week. So the charity that we've just formed, I've got 4 trustees, including myself, 2 of which are away on holiday just now, which is fantastic because they actually need to go away and reset and come
Yeah.
back charged for the final push, ready for the event. So yeah, we're working on that at the minute.
Dude, it sounds absolutely incredible. So we're going to put a link to your Instagram page in the notes of this podcast. We're not going to put a link to the Eventbrite because, again, if you want
Yeah,
the link to the Eventbrite, you need to message to the page, and there'll be a little process of speaking with somebody and making sure you are who you claim to be, which is what we need to protect everybody. But we'll put a link to the Instagram. Is that the best way for people to contact you, or are you happy? Is there an email address we could put in there, or
yes.
what's the best way to get in contact? Don't have to tell me it now.
So
But if you just send it to me on WhatsApp, we'll put
yeah,
it in the link for the notes of the podcast. So there'll be a link to the Instagram and there'll be an
yeah,
email address that people can
yeah.
email as well.
And there's a face. So that we've got a Facebook page, we've got a Twitter account, we've got Instagram account, we've got an email address. So there's many forms, 4 forms of possible contact for those that want to get involved. And I would like to try and advertise as well that we are open to any suggestions and advice. If anyone wants to help us create this event, if someone wants to contribute financially, if someone's got a lead in a corporate world that would potentially get involved and help us raise the funds for this weekend. All the funds that we raise will be offset and split up to the Firefighters charity. So Firefighters charity are on board with us. They will be attending the weekend. All the money that we managed to raise, they'll be getting a donation for it. And that's the goal going forward, to make sure that they're on board. The following years coming up now, what we're looking to try and do is get into the south of the border, into England, north and the south, and other parts of the UK, and start making this a national event. We will never move away from the mountains. We're not going to go into a city landlocked field with a music festival. This is a rural environment where we can hold an annual event every year that emergency service personnel can attend. So there's still room for loads of growth in this charity, but there's a real appetite for it. And this is the time that we really need to be contributing towards our mental and physical health to make sure that we look after ourselves,
100%, mate. I think it's incredibly important. And I think you are hitting right in between a fork in the road, a beautiful fork in the road, where we're having so many people join the fire and rescue service now. We're doing masses of recruitment all up and down the UK. So it's important that they get an introduction first and foremost to self-awareness and their own mental and physical balance. And, when it's good to pull that pressure release valve and take a time out. But also so many of them are into more things like this. The reason some people steer away from some wellness and some other facilities and other support mechanisms is because it's a bit woo-woo. It's a bit too psychological and a bit too sit on a sofa and talk to me about your childhood. Whereas something like this, you get an opportunity to do something physical. We're not expecting everyone to do CrossFit and sprint up the side of the mountain, but just get out there and have a walk. I always say to people, how many great conversations do you end up having on a long walk with somebody, even if long to you is a mile? Do you know what I mean? You get a great opportunity to speak to like-minded people and get that release, get that balance, get that sort of hit the pause button for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really important. You mentioned that there, that if this weekend's not based on the high octane side of outdoor pursuits, it's based on incorporating everybody's ability. And if a mile's a long day for you, then the mile's a long day. And that's where we target that. So the NHS have River Centre up here. I don't know if that's the same in England, where we get access to the post-trauma counselling. Yeah. So they've agreed that they're going to attend the weekend as well. They've funded it themselves. So the River Centre are coming along, and they're going to be running walking talks through the Cairngorm forests at Badagoosh, Cairngorm Outdoor Centre. And again, no pressures. It's not a sit down in a classroom environment and let's start speaking about how you're feeling. It's just go for a walk, maybe groups of four or five, with one of the members from NHS Lifelines, and just see where the conversation goes. Listen to people talk about their challenges and listen to people open up if they want to open up. If you don't want to get involved, then you don't want to get involved.
But you might also pick up loads of different tactics, tips, tricks, ways that people have had healthy coping mechanisms, because we can easily drug ourselves with unhealthy coping mechanisms. So some strategies, some mindsets, some mental processes to try and do exactly that, to try and process things as you hit those inevitable waves through the life of a first responder or the wider first responder family.
Yeah, and again, I'd like to confirm this is open to police, fire, paramedics, Coast Guard, mountain rescue. If you're a blue light responder experiencing these challenging, working days and lives, then this is available and open for everybody.
You know what, as I say that, we had a meeting again a few weeks ago with Blue Light Card.
Okay.
So we've done a load of work with them. If anybody don't know who Blue Light Card is, they are a global company that gets discounts for blue light personnel, first responders, including healthcare, fire, police, military, all that sort of jazz, everything that we mentioned and all of the above. So this would be a really great thing for them to look at getting involved with. I know we're very close to this year, but maybe for next year, I'm thinking Hikes, Gore-Tex, Blue Light Card. There's a few other people I can really think could get on board, even if it's just resources, trinkets, giveaways, but maybe even from a financial capacity as well. I think there's so many people that would be willing to get involved and support this.
Absolutely. And the goal for this charity, as we start to grow and develop and we get the corporate sponsorship and the funds into the bank, no one takes a wage from this. This is something that we're doing on our days off. But the funding for us, again, financial pressures across the UK just now are one of the barriers to prevent people spending money or getting access to the outdoors, because money's tight, fuel bills, food
Yeah.
bills, all that sort of stuff. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to incorporate or create a fund, a financial fund that sits within the charity of 999 Reset, so that as and when we start to grow this and we create more of the weekend events, at the minute, those attending have to pay a sum to get access to the workshop. What we're looking to do is offset those costs. So we speak to Mountaineering Scotland, Able to Adventure, the yoga instructors, and we say, this is what they're looking for. Well, let us cover your costs, and then we give that saving on to the emergency responders. So hopefully it will never be an entirely free weekend.
No.
There'll always be a minimal cost, because what that does is
But that minimal cost might also eventually start being covered by the services, because things like Women in the Fire Service and other events that people attend for their own well-being and development can get covered by the services, and it's a great gift for services to give all members of their brigade or service, I think.
Yeah, and what an opportunity, because, we focus on operational delivery, meeting the demands of a changing service. We reduce appliances. There's this political agenda that needs to be met. We're a public servant, and there's always these financial restraints for emergency responders. But what we really need to be mindful of is that if the responder isn't fit physically and psychologically, then there is no service to deliver. And for the big organisations, it's a perfect time to get involved in investing within weekends like this, because the long-term effect is way cheaper and way benefit.
Mate, absolutely. We are spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds on mental health and well-being, and we are still having stress and or poor mental health being the first or second. I think it depends on where you take your statistics from. It's either musculoskeletal injuries or it's stress. People off with stress. And then you can extrapolate that out and go, what's the effect of that on the longevity of that person's career? Every time that person or one of those people struggles and leaves, we have to retrain somebody. But if I can actually create an environment for this person, give them resources, give them support, give them opportunities like this, then will that relate to a tangible extension of their career of 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Will it stop someone leaving after 10 years and mean they'll continue for 30? Well, actually, that's a colossal cost. And you've got to really... And that's just for people that are the penny counters. And I know we all have I say the emergency services runs on goodwill, but there is also, we have to balance the books. But I think even from a strategic leadership perspective, it's a very smart investment of their time. I mean, we say, it's 20 quid. If they just spent £35 per person and let them go in a service vehicle, which again results in a minimal cost, that's a bargain. For the access that they will get to all of this stuff, massive bargain. They spend way more than that on someone to come on a Zoom call and spend thousands of pounds on that. Yeah. Still adds benefit, no doubt, but something like this is exactly what people want. Yeah, that's right. And it's in the organisations that employ us as emergency responders. It's a very forward-thinking organisation that actually looks at the end result instead of looking at what they need to deliver here and today, because the physically fit responder will be there as and when required. Yeah. These events of downtime, getting away from it, sharing a weekend with like-minded people, access to the outdoors, even leaving a weekend. So, someone rocks up to the weekend, they get involved in a clinic, whether it's a walk and talk or they get learned how to use a map, they can gain that confidence. And then the best result for us at the end of this weekend is to know that someone has changed the way they spend their time off by attending our weekend. That's a phenomenal result for us in the first year. If we get feedback after the weekend, I gained the confidence. I'm now going out to walk with my family. I'm more engaged with my kids. We work loads of weekends, but to get the weekends we get off, it's really important that we spend them wisely and well with our families. And if you can get confidence to access the outdoors, it's got a positive impact on the whole family and yourself. Mate, I think it's incredible what you're doing. I'm really looking forward to attending. I strongly encourage everybody to come as well. I say we're going to be there. The podcast is going to be there, enjoying all the atmosphere, enjoying all the resources, going on some cool adventures and spending time with like-minded people, mate. Really appreciate your time today, Andy. Thank you. And thank you for the platform to discuss this very important subject. And we are
absolutely ecstatic and looking forward to seeing you guys in the event. I've already started spreading the word within the Edinburgh stations, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. So
Yeah,
it's all
they're
good.
going to be disappointed. Nah, not with you, but with me. Far less interesting in person, I promise you. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Firefighters Podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.